What an interesting panel and afternoon. Next speech comes from Sjoerd Leemhuis. He is with Owlin and will talk with us today about how news are disrupting risk and rating models. And you will demonstrate the statement with some interesting case studies, I guess. A warm welcome to Sjoerd, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you, Stefan, and a warm welcome to everyone. Good afternoon. So I think we'll definitely show you some interesting cases today, and show you also what we do with news and what we do with natural language processing. And in the meantime, if people have any questions or like to know a bit more, feel free to drop them immediately in the chat. Then Stefan and I are going to cooperate to drop the question during the talk. Then we can have a chat about this as well. Let's maybe nice if I introduce myself first. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Owlin. Prior to founding Owlin, I worked in the financial sector as a consultant in the risk space, but also in the payment space. So I've seen quite some interesting companies from within. But with Owlin, we are all about applying natural language processing, so applying machine learning and AI on text and on news, which is really new world. I see myself always as a perfect hub between the two worlds to connect always the new world and the old world together. If I'm not when I'm not working on the company, I have a lot of hobbies I can talk to you about, but let's leave that for another moment. What I want to talk to you about is little over a year ago, around this time, we had a big first peak with COVID-19 cases, and it really shook up society and business globally. And what we saw in the financial markets is that there was a big need for data that drastically increased. So people tried, and especially financial professionals, they really tried to understand and also predict of what is happening in the world, and they were looking for data. Intuitively, people already knew, okay, some markets might be hit more than others, but I think if you want to look at more methodological view, the most known case, and let me go here, is to look at probability of default models. And what we're looking at right now is a PD model of airlines, leisure, oil, gas, auto parts, and restaurants. And you could really see that they peaked drastically in the beginning. Some of these lines, they peaked over 20% chance of default, but they also recovered quite fast. But I think one of the downsides of this is that a lot of things have happened in the meantime. Just 2 weeks ago, this article was posted by Risk.net that the PD models, they were actually not right. So because what is the problem with the PD models is they were trained on old data of previous crises. And what we noticed is that when we tweaked them, the former crisis, they were not working for this crisis. They were actually too pessimistic. So what we witnessed is that old ways of assessing risk and opportunity in the market actually didn't work anymore. And more data and more real-time data is actually needed to help financial professionals to navigate through the crisis. One of the interesting findings of this article was that the largest banks together, they set aside 252 billion of loan provisions in the second quarter of 2020, but actually they revised that number with 10 billion down. That's quite a significant number. And what you also see is in some use cases, you can have a very good prediction, but you also still want to be in the know when it happens. So instead of doing some forecasting, you would like to do nowcasting. So with all this knowledge, we created during COVID real-time COVID-19 impact monitor. And what you can see here is it's a whole different types of things, but this is focused on all the news and all unstructured data that we can grab our hands on, so research, but also news articles, which are being analyzed by machines, and then sliced and diced to highlight and indicate any trends. So one of the graphs that you're looking at right now is let me see if I can point with my mouse, I think that works as well, is a bankruptcy chatter indicator. So per sector, we can tell you how much bankruptcy chatter is there and how much bankruptcy concern is there. And this is a real-time indicator which tells you, for instance, that in the technology sector, there was way less bankruptcy chatter than, for instance, in the tourism or in the leisure sector. It also helps you to identify which companies are mentioned here. So not on a more a level of doing industry-wide predictions. It can also tell you, okay, these are the specific companies in your portfolio or in your supply chain that are more at risk than any others. And you can also plot, as you can see here, news stories and news buzz and sentiment scores together with your news articles, which is used also by risk and finance professionals to come to a better prediction of how their portfolio will perform. Another good indicator is also layoffs per sector. So this also gives you the possibility to investigate different sectors, see how much layoff news is there. And this is really going on the trend of what we would call nowcasting. So it's a bit a contradiction of the words now and forecasting, but in some cases we have seen that forecasting didn't work that well. We can improve the forecasting with these scores, but we can also help you to support nowcasting, which in some cases is really important if you need an early warning indicator of when you need to take action as well. So let me explain to you how we do this, and then also let me show you some use cases of how we who works with this data. Structuring unstructured data, that's really essential in an increasingly complex world. What we see is that the number of written data and content, it gets more every day. So today, in a single day, more content is produced. So research, news articles that a single human cannot read in their entire life. Yet we expect every financial institution to be in the know of everything that's happening in the world. So we build a platform that collects data from all over the world and right now looks at 3 million news sources globally. One of the first things that we do with this platform is we translate it into one standard language, which is in our case the English language. And then we have a whole natural language processing platform where we use different AI techniques and natural language processing techniques to highlight any opportunity, any risk, or any trends that are hidden in the news. We score all this metadata, and this metadata is used in different models, either by machines or by humans, to be aware of what's happening in their portfolio, their supply chain. We can customize every insight that we have, so we can customize the different models you would like to use or the different types of risk you're interested in, and give you insights that that you need in order to run your operation. So let me show you how this is, for instance, used by company Adyen. So people might know Adyen. Adyen is a payments company, and they're responsible for charging your credit card. So they are a payment service provider, and they also compete with companies like Square or Stripe. And Adyen needs to be in the know about their merchants and their client list. Why is that the case? Because Adyen also guarantees that if you would book a flight or a holiday, but your travel company goes bust, they will guarantee that you will get your charge back. So they need to be aware and have a real-time indicator of whether they're merchants, and often their merchants are companies that are non-listed. They might be operating in all over the world, in small countries and big countries. And they need indicators, outside view indicators, to know whether their merchants behave. Because as soon as one of the risk signals pop up, and as soon as they receive alerts from our system, hey, this merchant, there seems to be a bankruptcy case coming up. At that moment, their risk department is going to pick up the signal, investigate the merchant, and in some cases, they will press the freeze button to stop payments because they are responsible to keep enough cash on the settlement account to also make sure that they can handle all the chargebacks that will follow after goods are not being delivered anymore. So there, it's really important to have a workflow that also supports this. You don't want to have a workflow where you get alerts from every news article that is being published out there. But instead, we create a real-time ranking and a real-time overview of where we have seen some fraud cases, but also a real-time overview of where we have seen some bankruptcy risk cases, which in some cases get accompanied with a sentiment score, have proven to be an extremely good indicator of showing when stuff happens and when a risk department needs to take action. But that's actually not the only company that uses this technology. You also see that big four companies like KPMG, they are also, instead of selling consulting services, more and more building products to solve the real world problems. And as a corporate or as a consultant, as a big four, you can always choose to go to market and build something yourself. Or you can also choose to partner with fintechs like Owlin. And this is a question that we often get, and what we also see in the market. Should you buy or should you build a solution to solve your problems? And there we have a very simple view. I think if you have a bright team, you can always build something that should be able to do some natural language processing. It should also be able to track companies. But where we always see that the problems arise is if you want this to work at scale. So if you want to work if you want the availability that you can track millions of companies or hundreds and thousands of companies, integrate this in a workflow, have a machine that's always on and up to date. In our experience, we've seen that buying is always better, cheaper, and faster than building it yourself. And I'm not talking about running a proof of concept, because that's what a lot of companies can do themselves. But if you want to work and have something running in a production environment that you can really build on top of, and also get more features inside, get it also in a state which is maintainable and affordable, we have seen that that buying is always the preferred route in when you work on projects when it comes down to AI or natural language processing. What we do with KPMG is help them to track risks in the supply chain. Today, you see that third-party risk is in every top trend list in the industry right now when it comes down to what's trending in risk. We help we empower the product of KPMG that tracks supply chains globally, where we not only check individual suppliers, but we also look at country risk, where country risk is also a variable, which also is used in the risk scoring of the respective entities that companies are tracking. So if there are strikes or travel restrictions, you want to take this into account, because that also, during COVID, we have seen big disruptions in the supply chain globally. And we have also seen them coming by just analyzing and applying natural language processing on news. Another use case is a case that we work together with Fitch Solutions. And well, Fitch is of course known for their ratings, but the problem is that a rating is always based on financial information, annual reports, sometimes some quarterly update results, but often it's a backwards-looking score, which is created by an analyst, which is also not real time. So it's for the bigger companies, it's regularly updated. For a lot of companies, it's not that often. Ratings are not that often updated. So what we do with Fitch, we are integrated into their product Fitch Connect to make a rating more real time. And I can show you how that looks. So it's also, again, a composition of scores, but it also gives you the ability to look in specific companies. So if you say Credit Suisse and it has a beautiful rating, we also give you the ability to drill down Credit Suisse and also look at, is there any negative news, recent negative events that you need to be aware of, and that if you are a party risk manager, you want to take into consideration. This partnership is being presented also to 22,000 counterparty risk managers globally. So if you have a subscription on Fitch Connect, you can also ask for the news module to be activated, and then the ratings are enriched also with news sentiment scores, and also in-depth views that you can highlight, that you can see here as well. The market that we witness here is getting more and more mature. And let me go to the next slide. A lot of companies are right now adopting natural language processing and also adopting Owlin at this moment into their daily workflow. So you see payments companies, you see rating agents, but you also see more and more banks and asset managers that are applying natural language processing and applying news analytics into their daily workflow. So, for instance, at Sjoerd, we have a big credit risk management team that is also looking at more controls to understand whether their brokers behave, how their portfolio is performing. The same as investment partners is not only risk signals people are looking for, but also ESG signals that become more and more relevant in your investment processes. And how are they being served? That's actually quite simple. It's often with one of the free solutions, which are all powered by either a web-based interface, a dashboard, or they can also be consumed with an API. The majority of use cases that we have seen are in the area of risk or portfolio management. There are some opportunity spotting as well. So what you also see is when you are invested in emerging markets, in companies that are not always listed, it might be really hard to find information. So it might also be that there are no requirements to list any financial information, but yet you still want to know what is happening in certain markets or industry. Then applying natural language processing on news gives you very good indication of whether a market is moving the right direction. What you also see is more and more a need in the market to integrate and be available in marketplaces. So we're working on getting available in the FactSet marketplace, and we're also available in Salesforce. And you might wonder, how does it work? What we see is there's a big push in the market on Salesforce Financial Cloud, where we also see that the business is actually the first line of defense, where it really helps to make also your account managers and everyone aware of their external environment by also being available and present in a CRM system. And Salesforce has a few rollouts of their financial cloud at this moment in Europe, and we're also part of that rollout of the financial cloud at this moment. So how does this, I explained a bit about the different use cases. I think what we see really happening and what connects the use cases together is that it's often about retrieving relevant and proactive signals. So it's important to be real time. It helps you to get also clarity on opaque markets. So if you are investing in emerging markets or if you are tracking non-listed companies, and sometimes it can also be hard to track huge portfolios. So if you want to track thousands of companies with a very small team, if there's a lot of pressure on doing this cost efficiently, it might be very useful to use technologies like ours to help you track your portfolio. And it's also a way to unlock the future and the potential of unstructured data, and also to integrate it on a structured way into your investment processes. So it's also really about business transformation, and make sure that you can structurally work with unstructured data. So of the clients that use us, how would a typical dashboard look like, a front end? It's actually more than what you see here, but what you see right now is one column which gives you a ranking of my sample portfolio. So I have a whole bunch of big and small listed and non-listed companies all in a single portfolio, and yet we're able to rank them accordingly by looking at more than 1.3 million articles just over last week. We can tell you, and this is specifically only the articles that were about my portfolio, we can tell you, hey, this is the companies that we have identified, and this is also our ranking, where we are highlighting, in this case, Under Armour, because they have been targeted by the Security Exchange Commission, and they need to pay a fine of 9 million, which for Under Armour is pretty significant. I think, is news the only thing which is important? We don't think so. I think looking forward, it's also CDS data, it's also stock data, ratings, and having that all combined in one single overview, that is eventually what we go for. And I don't see the timer, but I think my time is gone right now. So I would like to thank everyone for their attention. And if you have any further questions, please find us at our booth, contact me or add me on LinkedIn, and looking forward to talk to you.
Actually, our speakers are really happy to speak today. So there's not much time left. Thank you very much. One question, I have a question here. Are the informations live data or test data? That's up to you. It's a short question. You can probably answer.
We work with all live data. The presentation I showed were some snapshots, but our dashboard works with real-time data.
And 2 minutes left. I'm allowed to ask you. Your sources are mostly assessed by machines. That means the sources are somehow certified by data providers, government websites. Do you have public sources? Do you prevent, let's say, a negative impact of attacks to influence investment decisions? Is this something that you fear? That means that you access different sources, or you said 3 million of data sets?
Yeah. So
is this something that is important for you, or?
What's important for us is that we are conscious about which sources we do follow, which we don't. And one of the big problems that you see with the big tech forums like Twitter and Facebook is that everyone can get their news on Facebook. So you only have to add a Facebook share button. But there is no Owlin share button available on the web. So we decide which sources we follow and which we don't. And that also helps in making sure you don't get fake news on your systems. It also helps that we provide the transparency. So if fake news becomes public on mainstream sources, we would give you all the sources in one overview combined and say, this is one story, these are the 20 sources reporting on it. Mm-hmm. And we make it easier actually to also spot what's going on and whether news could be potentially fake.
Super. No more questions. Cool stuff is here. Cool. Yeah.
Thanks.
Indeed.
Cool.
And hope to see you soon. Really, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Bye.
Bye.